Kevin Wood is my name. I am officially the company's president, or more precisely, its chief executive officer, and this year I will turn 30. In addition to having our headquarters in Germany, we just opened a branch in the United States. I suppose I owe my current situation to the several folks I've encountered along the way. Due to my parents' job movements, I was born in the US, but I was raised in Germany from an early age. Everything around me, of course, was in German. But because my parents are Americans, we communicated in English at home, and they made sure to teach me about American cuisine and traditions. More significantly, though, was that my grandparents lived in the US, and I spent every extended holiday there. Despite living in Germany, I was accustomed to American culture, particularly the summer holidays. German elementary schools are nearly identical to those in the United States. I had a great time doing different things when I stayed at my grandfather's house during vacations. I vividly recall how much pleasure it was to go to festivals and the beach with my grandfather, who was unable to spend much time because he worked in a factory. The other activities were even more enjoyable to me. Volunteering, swimming, and summer camp were my top favorites, even though they might not seem like much to others. It was because I could play with local children my own age. I was first anxious about blending in, but as I continued to attend year after year, I gained acceptance and naturally started playing with everyone. Before I knew it, I was even asked to work on workbooks with them when they got together to complete their homework. Fortunately, I was roughly as good as everyone else, so even if I had any questions, I could ask my buddies for a little help and sort things out. Additionally, there was a guy who was quite skilled at providing explanations. Pay close attention. You can solve it this way because the units are different. He was Eric Walker, my future best buddy. Though he wasn't very noticeable, Eric was wiser and gentler than everyone else. Instead of simply providing the solution, he would discreetly approach a child who was having trouble and work through the issue with them. As was customary, we were all together studying during the summer of my 5th grade year. That day, I was answering issues with ease when I abruptly became aware of the mechanical pencil Eric was holding. "What a neat mechanical pencil, Eric." "Oh, congrats." With a joyful expression, he showed me the mechanical pencil and stated, "My grandpa bought it for me." It was incredibly amazing, sparkling brightly, and well-maintained. "My grandpa made the spring inside this." "Really?" I asked, and as I and others expressed our surprise, Eric nodded shyly with a smile. As it turned out, Eric's grandfather managed the factory where my grandfather was an executive. When I hung out at Eric's house until evening, his grandfather, often covered in oil from his work, would take care of us. "Hey, Kevin, want to stay for dinner?" he asked, laughing and wiping the sweat from his face. He ended up smearing oil on his cheek. "Grandpa, you've got your cheek dirty." "Oh, really?" "Well, that's usual for me," he said, not bothered at all. Despite being the factory manager, akin to a CEO, he had no airs about him and worked hard, getting dirty himself. His down-to-earth attitude looked very cool to me back then. Additionally, the stories he told about my grandfather were really interesting. "Kevin, your grandpa is the best. He manages intricate tasks relying on the feel of his hands. More reliable and honorable than anyone I knew. My grandfather was a kind man, but he wasn't one to talk much about himself, so it was refreshing to hear." A few days after Eric showed me the mechanical pencil, my grandfather approached me shyly. "Kevin, this is for you because you always work so hard," he said, handing me a mechanical pencil, the same one as Eric's. In other words, a mechanical pencil whose parts were lovingly made by my grandfather. "Grandpa, thank you," I said, genuinely happy, and clutched the mechanical pencil tightly. Seeing this, my grandfather scratched his nose, smiling bashfully. "This spring that my company made is in it. I hope it can help you with your dreams, even just a little." My parents were always by my side, but I only got to see my grandfather during the summer months. Despite that, I felt happy to be looked after so warmly, even as a kid. I secretly admired that. By the way, Alan, our boss, was praising you. He said he really wants you to come to your factory, my grandfather added. Alan and Eric's grandfather were very good friends. They were what you'd call friends beyond the barriers of their job titles. They sometimes got together at each other's homes to drink beer, and they always looked like they were having a great time. Maybe seeing them like that made me secretly hope that I could have such friends someday. As time passed, we went on to middle school and high school. Perhaps influenced by my grandfather, I had become a collector of stationery. If there was an eraser of an unusual shape, I'd buy it with my allowance to try it out, or if I found a notebook with a texture I liked, I'd use it over and over. It was kind of nerdy, maybe, but speaking of mechanical pencils, there are so many different mechanisms at work. Sometimes, I'd take one apart entirely and couldn't put it back together. I was that serious about my interest in stationery. What writing tools are easy to use in class? I often found myself thinking about that during lessons. But don't forget I live in Germany. Growing up, benefiting from my grandfather's meticulous craftsmanship, I came to realize day by day just how convenient the stationery he made really was. Other stationery might be stylish, but they often lack functionality. That's why my obsession with stationery was hard to convey to my German friends. So the person I always talked to about it was him. The guy sitting in front of me keeps changing his pen, and it's really bothering me. Yo, it makes that clicky noise, doesn't it? Maybe I'll give him a 3-color ballpoint pen next time. Eric and I emailed each other almost every day, and he would listen to my gripes, and vice versa. I'd hear about new stationery coming out in the US from him. Then, during the summer of our sophomore year in high school, when I returned to the US, Eric suddenly said something unbelievable. I think I'm going to take over my grandpa's factory. Well, congratulations. With your smarts, Eric, all you need now is some hands-on know-how. Yeah, that's why I'm learning everything I can from Grandpa now. But I have another dream too. A dream? What is it? Tell me. I want to start a business with you. Really? I almost spit out the water I was drinking. How did it come to this? All I could do was blink in surprise at Eric. But Eric didn't hesitate at all and continued. Kevin, you're about the only one who can keep up with my love for stationery. Well, that's true. And you've probably fought a lot about various things in Germany, hadn't you? Well, right then, let's show the world the good things about stationery in the US. Let's spread the word about the good things in the US together. Eric's straightforward gaze left me speechless. Maybe our grandfathers had similar conversations. Oh my God, that thought made me laugh. Before I could even reply, Eric looked puzzled by my sudden laughter. I took a moment to calm down with a glass of water, then looked straight at Eric. I hadn't really thought about doing something as big as promoting the goodness of the US, but I wasn't planning on just vaguely going to university either. If I'm going to do something, I want it to be related to stationery. I hadn't thought about starting a business before, but it'd definitely be fun with you, Eric. I reached out my hand straight to Eric. As if he had been waiting, Eric grasped my hand with both of his. That's the spirit. We still have time. Let's hit the books hard from now on. We made a solid promise in the midst of summer. Someday we'd start a business together and take it international. From there, we continued to encourage each other toward our goals. After graduating high school, Eric went on to study engineering at a university in the US, learning all the techniques from his grandfather, while I went to a university in Germany and studied business management. Whenever I felt overwhelmed by the workload, I would always reach out to Eric for a pep talk. Of course, the same was true in reverse. Then, one summer, usually, I would go to the US, but it seemed better for Eric to see Germany, so he came over. I thought Eric's German was beginner level, but he was smart by nature, so his German improved quickly. I was surprised at how fast he improved. Thinking this, I showed him to my room. Eric laughed amusingly at the sight of my room, cluttered with documents and stationery. That's just how a bachelor lives. I'll never forget that neither of us even had girlfriends. After that, Eric toured Germany, doing a bit of sightseeing. He dismantled the stationery he bought the same day at my house, and we talked passionately until we forgot to sleep, just like when we were kids. We could simplify this part even more. Really? You can do that? Yo, who do you think I am? Finally, it was time for me to graduate from university. By then, Eric was nearly managing everything on his own. Still, there was some anxiety, so for a while, his grandfather stayed around to watch over things, which was reassuring. Right after I graduated, I used the money I had saved from part-time jobs during university to start a stationery company. I also signed contracts with Eric's factory and other friendly companies, finally setting sail. At the beginning of the business, I personally pitched our products everywhere, desperately increasing the number of stores that would carry them. My focus was on students first. I approached the stationery stores I often visited during my student days. Fortunately, because I was a regular, they were all receptive. As expected, our lightweight mechanical pencils and 3-color ballpoint pens exploded in popularity. They became a topic among students and even made a bit of a buzz on social media. The promotional power of social media is incredible. From there, the number of stores handling our products rapidly increased to the point where production could barely keep up. Your business was spot on, wasn't it? It's because you make good products. We praised each other's efforts while screaming with joy. 5 years later, my company, our company, had become quite well known. As a result, we also established a branch in the US and started selling stationery with stylish European designs. The launch there was also very successful. The fountain pens, which combined the craftsmanship influenced by my grandfather with European design, were a hit. Especially the fountain pens, since you can enjoy the ink too, they were popular with people who have a strong preference for quality. However, we couldn't bring the production lines to Germany, so we were completely dependent on craftsmen in the US, which limited our production capacity. I think we need to move to a new phase soon. Yes, let's sit down and think it through. I want you to see how things are going over here too. Indeed, since the business took off, I hadn't been able to return to the US much. Of course, Eric hadn't had the time to come to Germany either, so we decided to meet face to face and discuss things, going back to our roots. Also, I was concerned about our grandparents. They said they were fine over the phone, but still, I wanted to see them while I could. With that, I packed a bag full of souvenirs and headed to the US. I had things I wanted to do in the US first. Inspect the factory as much as possible. I wanted to thank the team making our products and find out who was involved. Then, inspecting the branch in the US. Of course, a company isn't just about the factory. There are salespeople who make the products sell, accountants who handle the finances, and many other talents involved. The strong sales in the US are thanks to them, so I definitely wanted to thank them in person. I was hoping to hear some good ideas from both the factory and the branch. Kevin, over here, when I arrived at the airport, to my surprise, Eric himself came to pick me up. As I stood there astonished, he approached me with a big smile and said, "While you're here, I'll be with you." I rearranged my schedule just for this day. Don't worry, everyone is competent. It seems Eric trusts his colleagues at the factory. Seeing that made me feel happy too. Then let's catch up, just the two of us. With that, our inspection trip began. Eric drove us first to the main factory where he works. I might have been the most surprised there. The facilities had improved significantly since I saw them when I was a kid. Of course, we had to increase production. Eric smiled proudly. I knew Eric had been working hard, but seeing it firsthand almost brought tears to my eyes. Trying to cover it up with a cough, I changed into my work clothes. My work clothes were new and clean, but Eric's, which he changed into, were stained with oil and chemicals, a testament to his hard work. Well, Eric, there's an urgent call. Okay, got it. Sorry, Kevin. Go ahead without me. Just as I finished changing, Eric got an urgent call, and I had to start the factory tour alone for the time being. Finally stepping into the actual workplace, though, a worker with some spare time guided me. I was nervous about being in a real work environment for the first time. As I looked around curiously at everything, the workers, although they didn't stop their tasks, greeted me with smiles and nods. I smiled back at them. What are you working on here? Yes, this is. Even to my naive questions, everyone answered politely. They honestly talked about what they focus on and what the challenges are. After hearing quite a bit, I realized that it would be difficult to increase production further without expanding the factory's current scale. That meant we needed to think of new initiatives. As I walked back to the office, Eric, who had just finished the phone call, rushed back. Sorry that took a long time. No, it's fine. I've pretty much seen everything. That's good then. Hey, Kevin, I just got a call. Apparently, the call was from a paper maker Eric is close with who said he really liked the writing feel of the fountain pens we released recently. That's great, I started to say, but stopped myself and looked at Eric. Hey, why are you so close with a paper maker? Oh, I've been friendly with him since my grandpa's time. Next, how about we focus on paper products, notebooks, or stationery? We'll have to think carefully about that. That makes sense. The fountain pens are selling well, and if we can come up with a good ink formula that blends well, that would be awesome. Can't you ask that guy for help? Got it. I'll ask him again next time. Thinking of paper formulations might not have occurred without hearing the word craftsman. Well, just coming up with formulations can be researched indefinitely, but our products sell because of a precision that only we can offer. That's why we need the craftsman's skills. While thinking about this, I reflected once again on the workers I had seen today. Even though their tasks involved machinery, they ultimately use visual checks and manual verification, accomplishing tasks only humans can perform. I was reminded once again of the importance of human qualities that we need to continue to value. After that, I revisited the factory with Eric and saw him being revered as the factory manager. Eric and I both aimed for such an environment, and we ended up talking with various people and stayed longer than intended. Hey Eric, time's running out. Whoa, you're right. A quick glance at the watch showed it was nearly time to head to the branch in the US, or we'd be late. We downed our cold coffee in one gulp, and without even time to change, we rushed out of the factory. Originally, we were supposed to head there with Eric driving, so it looked like we wouldn't be too delayed. But I made a quick call just to be sure. The woman who answered was very cheerful and pleasant. It was clear that people like her were part of the reason the branch in the US was running smoothly. During the drive, we talked about how grateful we were for their efforts and managed to arrive just a few minutes late. Sorry, excuse us. The entrance was neatly organized, and it felt good to be there. We stood out in our dirty work clothes, but we felt no embarrassment and carried ourselves confidently. I'm very sorry, the branch manager is still with the previous client and running late. Oh, then could you show us around since we're here? We'd like to see who is working. Yes, of course. Shall I show you around? No, you must be busy with other tasks. We'll take our time looking around. Thank you. We said this and declined the woman's offer. The woman led us to the front of the office area and hurried to another floor. This was my first time actually seeing the branch in the US, and despite feeling guilty about the business, I realized we really needed to appreciate their hard work. Finally, the long-awaited office. There are a lot of employees here who support our company. With that in mind, we entered the office with nervous looks on our faces. Hey, do you realize you're holding everyone back? At that moment, the office fell dead silent. The voice that echoed clearly carried irritation, and the atmosphere was tense. We looked towards the source of the voice, wondering what was happening there. A man in an expensive suit was standing in front of a young employee, looking up, upset. The young employee, being scolded, was looking down, apologizing in a faint voice. Trying to ask someone what had happened was impossible, as the other employees also kept their mouths shut and comfortably focused on their own work. It was clear no one would speak up in such an atmosphere. I thought about observing for a bit longer, but seeing the angry man's demeanor, I couldn't stand by. I signaled to Eric with my eyes that we needed to intervene, and our eyes met. It seemed Eric felt the same way. We quietly approached the two men. "Excuse me, what's happening here? Who are you?" The man looked suspiciously at us. We had just approached him unexpectedly. He looked at us solemnly, then snorted and took a sip of coffee from his desk. This guy lost an important report for the main production line, so I'm giving him some guidance. Even a kid can manage paperwork, but this guy... He gestured with his chin towards the young employee. The young employee looked like he wanted to say something, but instead looked down, frustrated. Something about this situation seemed off to me. What is he saying? Just like you see, he's just apologizing and not coming up with any solutions. This is why newbies are troublesome. They can't think of the next step. He said this and laughed scornfully. Then the young employee suddenly looked up and spoke. "But I submitted that document to Max yesterday." But, I told you not to make excuses." The man interrupted. He clearly had no intention of listening to his young employee. Whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. But every time the young employee tries to speak up, he silences him right away. Judging from the situation, it seems he's the manager, and he's unilaterally hurling words at him. This situation is in no way acceptable, especially since such a thing is happening in my own company. I was shocked. Forgetting Eric was beside me. I instinctively spoke up. "Excuse me, I understand what you're saying, but why not listen to what he has to say? Why would I believe someone who lost the document? He's bound to lie. Still, blaming him outright won't solve anything." As I said this, I saw the manager's eyebrows twitch as he laughed. Then he turned towards me, glaring. "Who are you?" "I'm the manager here, and if I say so, everyone should just follow along. I'm in charge of this general affairs. Are you talking back to me?" With that, he looked at our attire again and laughed mockingly. "And don't come here in such filthy clothes. You'll dirty the office. I don't know what business you have here, but this isn't a place for filthy people like you to come freely. Got it? Filthy. We were working in the factory, so it's natural we are dirty. Moreover, that's not relevant now. Shouldn't we be more concerned about the whereabouts of the document than the cleanliness of our clothes or assigning blame?" I firmly responded. I could see the wrinkles in the manager's brow deepen. His hand tightened around the mug he was holding, easily noticeable, yet he still wanted to say something to me and said it in a harsh voice. "What's your deal? Outsiders shouldn't be meddling in this. Who the hell are you anyway? Even your work clothes are brand new. Are you a newbie? What do you know about work? I have a career that I've built up, unlike you. I'm not affected by the words of someone with this little social experience." Career? Social experience? Certainly, compared to this man, I may still lack in many areas, but that's exactly why I want to interact directly with various people and learn what's best. As I've said before, I want to value the human qualities that only come from being personable. I want him to understand that too. With that determination, I faced him squarely. True, I may not have the social experience or career that you do. However, I do want to understand what the person in front of me is trying to say, what they want to communicate. That's why I think it's important to listen to them. Of course, I also want to understand what you're frustrated about. As soon as I said that, I felt a lukewarm sensation on my head. What's this liquid? When I realized I was drenched in lukewarm coffee from head to toe, I could hear a faint scream from a female employee. While hearing the murmurs of the employees, I looked up to see the manager had inverted his mug, grinning triumphantly. "Hey, let me tell you how to treat you here, young man." "Wait, what are you doing?" "It's okay, Eric. I'm okay." As Eric, who is usually reserved, raised his voice unexpectedly, I calmed him down. I faced the manager directly, coffee dripping from my bangs. "So this is how things are done here. I understand very well now." "If you understand, that's good. Your work clothes got dirty, and your experience got better, right?" The manager laughed gleefully, to which I responded, "FL, you're fired." Sorry. What are you talking about? What are you doing?" As the manager stood holding the empty mug and laughing, a voice echoed through the office. Turning around, I saw the woman from earlier and a kindly-looking man rushing in anxiously. "Oh no. CEO Kevin, are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine. Could I possibly borrow a towel?" "Of course, hey, get a towel and some clothes right away." "My clothes are okay. I was planning on leaving anyway." "I see. Then I'll arrange for your car." "Thank you. I appreciate it." The office suddenly became frantic as I wiped the dripping car with a towel provided by the hurried woman. I looked at the manager, who had a dumbfounded expression, not understanding what was happening. "What? Why is everyone in such a panic?" It seemed he completely failed to grasp what was happening, even taking the fact that I was called the CEO as a joke. However, the branch manager lost his temper at that idiot. He is our CEO. He came here specifically for an inspection, and what a terrible thing you did to him. At that moment, the manager's face turned ashen as he realized the gravity of what he had done. His hand holding the mug trembled visibly. "Seriously? You're joking, right? There's no way I would make such a trivial joke. You should understand, or is your social experience not sufficient to grasp that?" I said, while holding the coffee-stained towel, still staring at the manager. I don't want to judge people by their appearance or age. I want to sincerely engage with what's in front of me and foster a company that uplifts through cooperation. Of course, being good at your job is preferable, but people who belittle others to feel superior can hardly respect others. I will contact you later regarding your employment. For now, I will take my leave. Sorry for causing a disturbance, everyone. I announced to the employees there that I was leaving. The abruptness of the event left many employees visibly shaken. Having caused enough disturbance, it did feel a bit too late to reconsider, but realizing there was nothing more to gain by staying, we swiftly made our way back to the entrance. Fortunately, only my upper body was wet, so I could still get in the car. I handed the towel I used to wipe the car off to the woman next to the branch manager, likely his secretary, and apologized once again. "I am truly sorry for causing such a disturbance." "No, it's us who should apologize for our employees' grave disrespect, and I also have a fault for not noticing this situation sooner. I'm sorry for the trouble caused to you regarding his employment. Including that, I would like to discuss further. So, could we possibly arrange another time? We couldn't properly talk today." "Yes, of course. I apologize for the trouble, but thank you in advance." With that, I promised to visit again and decided to head back to the hotel. Eric looked quite flustered, having witnessed everything, and I couldn't help but laugh seeing his more exhausted expression than mine. I myself was acting instinctively at that moment, and I felt exhausted by now. We looked at each other, laughed together, and simultaneously let out a big sigh. That was a surprise. It's good that I came to see it myself. Yeah, sometimes you just have to see things with your eyes. It's not that I don't trust people, but I need to verify things myself to take responsibility. As we parted ways, we reflected on what was necessary for the company to continue to grow. Originally, we had planned to have dinner that night, but we were both too exhausted and decided to postpone it until tomorrow. As soon as I got to the hotel, I threw off my wet work clothes and jumped into bed. I still smelled like curry, but I was too tired from everything that had happened today to even think about getting up. I left the rest for tomorrow and went to sleep. During my stay in the U.S., various things happened. First, about the manager Max, who had thrown curry at me. After discussing it with the manager of the U.S. branch and the HR manager, it was decided to move him to another department for retraining. He was actually competent and had made considerable efforts in sales before. However, after one major success, he seemed to have deluded himself into thinking he had done it all alone, and his attitude became arrogant. After being transferred to HR to calm him down, he was moved to Eric's factory, and Eric himself took care of him. There was another big move on the horizon. I was able to speak directly with a paper craftsman closely associated with Eric, with whom I had a direct conversation. When we actually visited the workshop and saw a process in action, we realized just how delicately they carried out their work. However, he explained that it's precisely because of that connection that they can produce the exact texture of paper we desired. If his techniques could be incorporated, imagine the quality of products we could offer. When I discussed this, the craftsman said he would help as much as possible. He couldn't stop his current work entirely, but he was happy to assist in development. When I revisited the branch in the U.S., I heard from some employees that fountain pens and sealing stamps were becoming popular in the U.S. If we could produce products that catered to this trend, they might be well received. When I discussed this with Eric, he said he would consult with the craftsman about making paper that worked well with ink and envelopes that didn't wrinkle or feel uncomfortable when sealed. Development took time, but it was decided to add a new paper production line at the main factory where Eric worked. Incredibly, the one to lead it would be Max, who had been transferred. I've learned a lot from the factory manager about what I lack. I'm truly grateful to both of you for giving me another chance. I'll definitely get this on track, Max said strongly to Eric. The results were a huge success. The ink dried quickly, so it wouldn't smudge easily, yet the paper felt nice to touch and sold well, along with our kit product, the fountain pens. Well-made stationery made from the same material also became popular, as many people bought them in sets. Also, the design was fashionable and inspired by European vintage. Thus, our company gained even more momentum. We're currently considering whether we can launch this paper, which has been a hit in the U.S., in our German headquarters as well. Eric and I, without realizing, had become indispensable to each other. Just like our grandfathers, we excel in different areas, but what we value is the same. No matter how large the company grows, people cooperating with each other towards the same goals is what matters. With this in mind, we will continue delivering our beloved products to various people. On the day the CEO from the foreign headquarters came to visit, my 37-year-old manager, Joshua, said, "This guy is just an errand boy." I went him to a swanky restaurant with Joshua. The CEO suddenly began to look at me very closely before revealing who I really was. I'm 53 years old, and my name is John. I had been taking care of my mother while I worked at a life insurance company, but she had to move into a nursing home after she developed dementia. To take care of her, I stopped my job, but staying at home by myself got too lonely. I was fortunate enough to land a job at a big company's general affairs department at the age of 53. But Joshua didn't like me and thought I was an elderly man with no skills. Let's now take stock of my complicated life, which is already halfway through. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and my father owned a small business. My father's business was struggling when I was 3 years old, and he unexpectedly died of a disease. I was 3 years old at the time, and I don't remember much of it. I have a dim memory of someone who was always around me, like a brother. He was most likely a friend from the neighborhood. By the time I became conscious of my surroundings, my mother had a heart issue, and we were living in a modest apartment on government assistance. When I was 4 years old, I was placed in a children's home because my mother found it too difficult to care for me. I think my mother feigned a smile as she said goodbye to me. She smiled and waved goodbye at the house, as I barely recall. I was crying all the time, and I was in the same room as a boy my age named Bobby. In the evening, I believed I could return home. I stayed under the bed for a time after realizing I couldn't eat. I was completely unable to eat. I remained in the room sobbing nonstop. "Hey John, let's play," Bobby would say as he dragged me to the large hall while the others called me a whiner. "Crybaby is here," everyone exclaimed. Everyone cried at first too, Bobby would add. After that, an older boy read a picture book to me. The caretakers read me more picture books over time since I was so engrossed in the book. I joined everyone for dinner. I was finally able to fall asleep. I occasionally woke up crying from dreams about my mother. "John, are you okay?" Bobby would ask in the morning. "Breakfast time has arrived." "We're like brothers because I've been here since I was a baby." "Yes, I'm all right." "Bobby, you also don't have parents." "No, they might be somewhere." We had such discussions when we were just 5 years old. I then started going to elementary school. I was teased at school, nicknamed a parentless Buddhist statue, and warned that touching me would bring bad luck because of the pretty large mole between my eyebrows. We were still shunned, even though Bobby would defend me by stating, "I'm always with him, and nothing bad happens." An older boy from the home warned me to ignore what others say, so I was somewhat prepared. As those days passed, when I was in 3rd grade, a blond boy named Sam joined the home. His eyes were a clear blue, and he didn't seem to speak much Japanese. Sam was in the room next to mine, always reading many English books his father had given him. I loved books, so I approached Sam, saying, "Tell me what these say." Sam nodded and said, "Yes." Then Sam simply said, "I don't understand Japanese." From then on, Bobby and I talked to Sam a lot. Sam gradually learned Japanese, and Bobby and I slowly learned English. Sam had come to Japan with his father after his mother passed away in the U.S., and his father's busy work schedule brought him to our home. At school, Sam, Bobby, and I were in the same class, and during breaks, Bobby and I would help Sam with language arts and math, mixing in English. Through this, we all developed a love for studying. Sam occasionally received English books from his father, and Bobby and I were fascinated by them. During meals, Sam would teach us the names of fruits and vegetables in English, making mealtime enjoyable. During summer break, Sam intensively taught us English, and we spent our days translating English books into Japanese and discussing them with Sam. We also helped Sam with his summer homework, and gradually, Bobby and I started to speak some English. In middle school, Bobby and I had excellent grades. Sam, who had become quite proficient in Japanese, would ask us about kanji for his language arts classes, and his grades improved as well. Even after returning to the home, the 3 of us devoted ourselves to studying. We smoothly passed our high school entrance exams. We graduated at the top of our class in high school. However, after graduating from high school, we had to part ways. The farewell was very sad. We had supported each other like brothers, or even more than brothers. I secured a job at a life insurance company. Bobby got a job at a publishing company, and Sam was hired at his father's company. Bobby was happy about getting housing. Then graduation day came, and I missed the early blooming of cherry blossoms in spring break. A luxury car arrived at the home. It was Sam's father. We greeted everyone, including Mr. Carter, the head of the children's home, and then returned to our homes. Sam's father wanted to thank us personally, so Bobby and I saw Sam off. Bobby and I held back our tears as we were each driven home in the children's home's car. When I got home, my mother cried with joy and apologized to me, looking much older than I remembered. My mother said, "John, I'm sorry for all the hardship you went through." "Mom, are you okay?" For me, living at the home wasn't hard at all. It must have been tougher for you being alone. But I'm here now. I have a job, and we don't need government support anymore." As I said this, the tears I had been holding back streamed down my face, and I hugged my frail mother. That day, my mother splurged on meat and made beef stew. Apparently, if she had heart surgery, she could improve significantly, but being old-fashioned, she refused further government help. Bobby, Sam, and I exchanged addresses. One day, Sam and his father visited us. It was just before the entrance ceremony for our jobs. "My son, Sam, is very grateful to you, John," Sam's father said, handing my mother a business card. Later, we found out that Sam's father was the son of a real estate mogul in the U.S. and had come to Japan for resort development. The Japanese facility wasn't free for them. It seems Bobby and I had been under government care. Sam's father took my mother and me to Bobby's company housing, and the 5 of us went to a family restaurant. After the meal, Sam's father had something to discuss. "You boys are very good at studying. Sam's Japanese has improved thanks to you," Sam's father said in fluent Japanese. "How would you like to attend university in the U.S.? Bobby and I were surprised when my mother said, "We don't have that kind of money." "Don't worry about the money. My father passed away, and I've taken over his business. I'm returning to the U.S. with Sam, and I want you boys to further your education, so please don't worry about the expenses." But the 5 of us fell silent. I broke the silence. "Mr. Thompson, thank you. Actually, my mother has a heart condition, and I want to stay by her side." "Is your mother's condition serious?" "Yes, she can get better with surgery, and I plan to work so she can have it." "In that case, I know a doctor. You should act quickly. Please come to the U.S. as I mentioned before, John. You can pay me back later." I was even more surprised and pondered. I wanted my mother to get well. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for offering to let me pay you back later. I'll gratefully accept your help." When I said that, I bowed. Sam and his father smiled warmly. Meanwhile, Bobby was still unsure. I've been in the children's home since I was born, and I still don't know much about Japan, so I think I want to stay here." "I see. Then I want you to go to university in Japan. It's still quite a credential-oriented society here," Sam's father said as he handed Bobby a large envelope as if he had it prepared in advance. Bobby took it and was astonished. The contents of Sam's father's attaché case seemed detailed. Inside, it appeared to be a substantial amount of money, enough to attend university. Bobby was surprised. "Can I also pay you back later?" "Of course. You've had a hard time too. Enjoy your university life." Afterwards, on the way home, Sam's father told Bobby to get a seal for his bank account and took him to the bank to deposit the money for safety. Bobby declined the job offer, rented a small apartment, worked part-time, and studied hard. A year later, he was accepted into Tokyo University. He worked as a tutor while paying back Sam's father bit by bit, but Sam's father didn't accept the payments. As for me, I declined the job offer and went to California with my mother and Sam's family. We stayed at Sam's mansion for a while. Despite being a bit late, Sam and I were both accepted into the prestigious UCLA, and so we became university students. My mother underwent successful heart surgery, thanks to a doctor recommended by Sam's father. She recovered gradually while resting. The university required this SAT exams, but Sam's father helped us with English conversation, business English, and grammar. Sam's father, with tears in his eyes, said, "I couldn't save my wife, but I'm glad John's mother is getting better." What a compassionate man he was. We lived in a place called Little Tokyo in California. California is surrounded by natural beauty, like beaches, mountains, and deserts. Little Tokyo is a Japanese-style town reminiscent of the Meiji era, with many Japanese residents and tourists. The murals in the neighboring town were captivating. The university was less than an hour away by bus, which felt like a dream. My mother felt guilty staying idle and started working at a souvenir shop in Little Tokyo. It was also part of Sam's father's property. As an international student, I couldn't work outside the campus, but campus jobs were allowed, so we managed on our own. However, Sam's father never accepted rent or tuition from us. Sam and I enjoyed our university life, spending summers working, having fun at the beach, even dating, and we graduated together in 4 years. After graduation, Sam and I helped with sales at Sam's father's real estate company. Sam got his driver's license early, and we often went out together. The souvenir shop my mother worked at was popular, and we had no trouble making ends meet. She was very happy to be able to work, and her once gaunt cheeks filled out as she started eating well. Although I received a salary from our sales work, I wanted to use it to pay for my tuition, but Sam's father wouldn't accept it. He said it was because he always wanted another child. Sam's father's company was a large corporation, and Sam assured me that I didn't need to worry about money. I received an airmail from Bobby saying he had graduated and secured a job at a major publishing company. It was a time when conversations were carried out through letters or phone calls, as mobile phones were not yet common. I spent my 20s running around the U.S., working in real estate sales. My sales performance was good, and I wanted to repay Sam's father in some way. Before I knew it, I had picked up a native English accent during my university years. One day, my mother received an airmail from Japan. It said that her sister was now alone and needed care. While I was in the home, my mother had relied on her sister for shopping and household chores. When I told Sam and his father about this, they encouraged me to return to Japan. By then, mobile phones and the internet were widespread, and I had received an airmail from Bobby with his email address. We started communicating via email, and I shared my email address with Sam, deeply bowing to thank his father before returning to Japan. My mother and I rented a small apartment near my aunt in Japan. I joined a life insurance company, and Sam occasionally visited us from the U.S. At the insurance company, I shared my background only with the CEO, Mr. Taylor, and soon started running around in sales. The sales style was different from the U.S., so I began by learning from my seniors. I gradually improved my sales performance, but never indulged in luxury. That was life for my mother and me. When my aunt entered a special nursing home, my mother started working part-time in a factory. The seasons changed quickly. Meeting Sam had changed my life, and I couldn't help but be amazed by it. I was already 50 years old. Sam had married in the U.S. and had a happy family. I had become the CEO of Sam's father's company's branch in Japan. However, I mostly delegated tasks to employees, only reviewing documents and sending them to Sam via computer. Then, when my mother turned 73, she became bedridden due to a compression fracture in her back. I quit my job at the insurance company to care for her. I was offered a position in the general affairs department, but my mother was my only family. Still single due to my busy work life, I devoted myself to caring for her. Although she initially improved, she eventually developed severe dementia. I was 53 years old, and her dementia was quite advanced. I placed my mother in a nearby nursing home, but she gradually began to forget who I was. Living alone in the apartment, I recalled my younger self crying in the children's home. I managed the company with the help of the property management company and employees, with minimal work involving year-end settlements and correspondence. Bobby had become a department head at a publishing company and had children in college. I felt the urge for the three of us to meet again. Sam's father had become chairman, and Sam was now CEO of the company in the U.S. Sam's daughter was attending our alma mater. I asked Sam if he could come to Japan, and I arranged to meet with Bobby and Sam at a fancy restaurant. Bobby and I split the bill. I picked up Sam from the airport, and we hugged joyfully at the gate. I'd arranged Sam's accommodations. After resting for a night to adjust to the time difference, we enjoyed a leisurely day of shopping like children. At the restaurant that night, Sam said, So, your mother is in a nursing home now. You didn't end up with your girlfriend in the US, huh? No, she didn't want to come to Japan anyway, I replied. Sam and your father have been incredibly helpful to us, I added. It's fine. My father was just lonely. No matter how much money you have, without family, there's no dream or hope. All he had left was taking over my grandfather's business. He wanted us young ones to have dreams. I see. I'm alone again now. I have time on my hands, and at 53, I'm looking for a job other than being a CEO. Yes, you've taken good care of the Japan branch, but the few employees we have are very competent. I don't know how to feel about my daughter getting a boyfriend, I said. Yeah, I get it. I have a daughter too. We enjoyed our meal with such conversations. Then Sam said, You know, I have a connection at a foreign life insurance company dealing with real estate claims. Their branch is nearby. Should I introduce you? Really? That would be great. I can't handle sales anymore, but I could do an office job. Sam immediately called Mr. Smith, the CEO of KMM Corporation, and introduced me. An interview was set up for the following week. Sam explained my background and my current role as CEO to Mr. Smith, and my history was kept confidential, known only to Mr. Smith and a few in HR. Sam enjoyed his long-missed Japanese food, and as Bobby's vacation ended, we saw Sam off at the airport. I had my interview at KM Corporation and was soon hired into the General Affairs Department. I introduced myself and took my seat at my desk. The office included a very young, late 30s elite manager named Joshua, who graduated from Tokyo University. The department head was a woman named Michelle, who appeared to be around 40. Michelle was very beautiful and had a strong career woman vibe. In his initial greeting, Joshua introduced himself as a Tokyo University graduate. Credentialism. What a pity, I thought instantly. Even though I had attended university thanks to Sam's father, the U.S. was merit-based, as was my previous insurance company. Despite being a foreign company, Joshua's young age combined with his credentialism was disheartening. While I was typing at my desk, Joshua said, Hey, you old mid-career hire, get some coffee for everyone. Yes, Joshua, I replied right away. Michelle interjected, Joshua, watch your tone. You can't speak to a senior like that. John has a proper name. I'll get the coffee myself. Michelle, the department head, shouldn't be getting coffee, I thought. I'll get it today, I said, bowing my head to Michelle before sitting back down. John, apologize to Michelle, Joshua ordered. Oh yes, I apologized to Michelle, I said when she brought the coffee. She smiled warmly and said, It's okay. I need the exercise. During lunch break, I ate a convenience store bento at my desk. Michelle always went out for lunch. Joshua seemed to have a homemade lunch. Hey John, are you seriously single at your age, eating convenience store food? That's pathetic. Yes, I'm single, but I don't mind, I retorted. Joshua looked puzzled as he ate his homemade lunch. After lunch, Joshua said, Hey John, make 50 copies of this. Yes, right away, I said. I went to the copy room and looked at the contents of the document. I immediately realized it was an important copy. This foreign company collaborated with financial firms using credit card information for phone sales. It was a legitimate partnership, so there was no problem. Sales were done entirely over the phone, and employees spent their time making call after call. There were no field sales. I created mail documents for the contracted clients. It wasn't too busy. I logged into a different app on my computer and could see information about the properties I was managing. There were female employees who acted mostly as operators. When Michelle went out, Joshua said, Hey John, you look bored. Why don't you clean the building today? Yes, Joshua. Even though I was constantly assigned menial tasks, it wasn't a burden compared to my previous job. I chatted with the cleaning lady and helped her clean the entrance. Just then, Michelle returned. John, what are you doing? The cleaning is supposed to be done by the cleaning staff. Please return to your desk immediately. Oh, Michelle, Joshua instructed me to do this, and besides, I could use the exercise. I replied. I see, Michelle said as she walked back to the office. Once the cleaning was mostly done, I returned to the office. Suddenly, Joshua dropped a thick stack of documents on my desk and said, John, this is today's paperwork. Finish it by the end of the day. Understood, I said, speeding up my typing on the keyboard. I was already familiar with using a computer from my previous job, and I managed to finish the work with some overtime. Joshua left promptly. I received an encouraging internal email from Michelle saying, keep up the good work. At 7:00 p.m., I finished and went to a diner before heading home. Joshua might act superior, but I enjoyed working. Being busy was better than being bored at home. Compared to the busy life of sales, menial tasks were nothing. One day, Michelle invited me to dinner through an internal email. I responded that I'd be happy to join her, even if it was just a family restaurant. When Michelle arrived, she let down her tied-up hair, and her sleek black hair shone. I felt a slight flutter. John, sorry for the sudden invitation. I'm single too, and thought it would be better to have company for dinner, she said. That's an honor, I replied. We ordered and had a meal together. Joshua can be quite arrogant, can't he? He's always been like that with new hires, and some have even quit because of him. I often warn him, she explained. Is that so? Well, he did mention graduating from Tokyo University. Given my age and being a mid-career hire, it's understandable that he might look down on me, I said. Really? But I reported it to Mr. Smith, she said with a mischievous smile. After that, she asked, can we have dinner like this sometimes? That makes me happy. Michelle, I said that and felt my face warm up a bit. We started going out for meals frequently, and eventually, Michelle and I began dating, spending weekends watching movies and shopping together. One day, Michelle told Joshua, Joshua, the CEO from the overseas headquarters is coming tomorrow. Arrange for a nice restaurant immediately, and you and John are invited. The company's CEO understood. Michelle instructed Joshua to call and make a reservation at the nice restaurant. I wondered what business the CEO had with me. I found it quite puzzling. The following evening, it was a bright night with a beautiful autumn full moon. The restaurant we arrived at was the same one I had visited with Sam and the others before. Joshua and I nervously headed to the restaurant. Then the sliding door opened. A Japanese man, around my age and dressed in an obviously expensive suit, entered. I had expected an American, so I was surprised. Joshua greeted him. Thank you, sir, for coming from afar. Thank you. I plan to relax a bit here in Japan. How are things? Everything is going smoothly. And you? The CEO said, turning to me. Joshua interjected, Oh, he's just an errand boy. No, Joshua, I said. I wasn't asking you. The CEO directed his attention to me. I'm John, a mid-career hire. I introduced myself. Nice to meet you. You're John, Mr. Davis said, extending his hand. I responded with a firm handshake. Then I received a business card from him. It read Robert Davis. After a moment, Mr. Davis asked, Joshua, is John really just an errand boy? Yes, that's right. Since he's a mid-career hire, he's handling various tasks for now. You have assigned John as an errand boy. Joshua, do you realize who you're talking about? Joshua's eyes widened. Mr. Davis continued. Joshua, you might be a Tokyo University graduate, but it seems you lack the ability to judge people. John, I'm sorry, but I did some research on you. What? I asked. You graduated from UCLA and were an excellent salesperson in the US. Did you enjoy your time there? Yes, Mr. Davis, it was a very rewarding experience. Did Sam tell you about it? Yes, Sam told me everything. I also did some additional research. How is your mother? She's in a nursing home, but I visit her twice a week. She's doing well? Thank you. I see. That's good, Mr. Davis said, looking a bit melancholic as the food arrived. Joshua muttered, I didn't know about UCLA. I'm sorry. Do you always judge people solely by their educational background? The U.S. is merit-based. Most of our clients here in Japan are elderly. Referring to someone as just an errand boy is unacceptable. Joshua, you're demoted to a regular employee. John, starting tomorrow, you will be the branch manager. What? Me, the branch manager? Yes, the current branch manager is an American and he wants to return home. I want you to take over. I am honored. Thank you. I will do my best, Mr. Davis. I'm truly sorry. I beg you, please don't demote me. I have a wife and children, Joshua pleaded, bowing deeply. He then bowed to me, apologizing as well. Mr. Davis, Joshua has apologized sincerely. I will keep an eye on him from now on, I said, feeling a bit conflicted. At that moment, a realization struck me. John, you truly have a big heart, Mr. Davis said. If you say so, I agreed. Joshua thanked us with tears in his eyes. Now let's enjoy this Japanese meal. Take your time, Mr. Davis said with a smile, and Joshua poured him some sake. We chatted about recent topics and ended the dinner on a pleasant note. After seeing Joshua off, Mr. Davis called out to me. John, I have something important to discuss. Could you come to my hotel? I agreed and followed him. In a room on a high floor, Mr. Davis spoke to me. John, you've had a tough time. He placed 2 packs of shrimp crackers and beers on the table. Shrimp crackers. They were the snacks my mother used to give me when I was hungry. I realized the boy who felt like a friend back then was. I clutched the pack of crackers, tears welling up. Brother, do you remember our family used to share these? Our mother said the mole on your forehead would bring good fortune. She had a sister who didn't have children, and her husband worked at a big company. I was adopted into their family. My uncle forbade me from seeing our mother, who was on government support, and I couldn't see her for a long time. I received an elite education and started a company in the U.S. I learned about you from Sam and repaid Sam's father for your university and mother's surgery. I've wanted to see you so much. Please, let me see our mother tomorrow. My brother said. We embraced, crying together. The full moon's light shone brightly through the window, celebrating our reunion. The next day, with shrimp crackers in hand, Robert and I visited our mother. Although she no longer recognized either of us, Robert held her tightly, crying, Mom. Mom. She smiled and happily ate the shrimp crackers. Afterward, I saw Robert off at the airport. The following day, I started working as the branch manager for Sam's company and for Robert's company as well. Michelle proposed to me, and we got married, buying a spacious apartment. The next year, despite being an older mother, Michelle gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Now, the 3 of us live happily together. No one can live alone. I realized once again how much I am supported by various people, and I felt deep gratitude for it. I quietly vowed to work hard for my family's sake in the future. I chose to give a female employee control over the company's destiny as a fresh challenge. I put her in touch with a senior executive at a big bank I like, and the first conversations about funding appeared promising. But when she went to the bank by herself, she was dismissed after only 5 minutes with the remark, "Your company doesn't belong here." She was clearly upset when she returned to the office. Despite my previous agreement with the head of the loan department, it turned out that she had been mistreated by the new manager, who was the son of the recently appointed vice president. I called the president of the bank in rage. I said, "I'll close all 51 group company accounts worth $3.65 billion if that's how you're going to treat us," which sent the bank employees into a panic. When the female employee and I came the following day, we received an unexpected answer. "My name is Collins David. Fortunately, my medical examination revealed no anomalies, despite the fact that I've been battling with a stiff shoulder and a developing belly lately. My 55th birthday was celebrated with a sigh of relief. When I was 35, I married my wife, but we had a tense relationship because we couldn't have kids. We got into a lot of arguments and were divorced 10 years ago. Divorce, as many divorced people remark, is much harder than marriage. There was no custody dispute to deal with because there were no children. Our divorce proceedings went well because my ex-wife, who was not materialistic, did not want an unreasonable asset division. Despite our divorce, we kept in touch after our cordial separation. Actually, we started talking more effectively after that, and our relationship changed to become more like that of old friends. My former spouse remarried and had a child 2 years after our divorce. Now that she is fully committed to being a parent, I occasionally listen to her worries and offer encouragement and support as she navigates her new life. In retrospect, I'm glad our divorce resulted in her current happiness by allowing her, who is 8 years younger than me, to remarry while she was still able to have children. In my case, I haven't found a partner since the divorce. In retrospect, it feels both long and short, and I feel like I've long since passed the halfway point of my life. I had no one to defend after the death of my mother, my only family, so my job became my entire reason for existing. Living a life in which I neither walk beside nor care for and observe the development of another, I occasionally feel empty and alone. Maybe this is why I often start new businesses or encourage others to start internal companies in an attempt to acquire a sense of fulfillment similar to that of parenthood by supporting and assisting people in their endeavors. I put a lot of work into helping single moms and single-parent households because of my personal experiences. My mother reared me alone after my father died while I was in the 3rd grade. Single mother homes were uncommon back then, and divorce rates were significantly lower than they are now. I remember that there was limited room for us in classes and school functions, and that schools were ill-prepared to assist such families. It was a time when fathers were rarely involved in child rearing, so during school open house events, rows of mothers would be present, with the occasional father standing out alone. Children from single-father households often felt out of place and very self-conscious in such situations. My mother, being a school teacher, often couldn't attend school functions, which left me feeling uneasy. One memory that stands out was creating gifts for Father's Day. I always drew an image of my father from memory, and in my drawings, he never aged. Today, I hear from my subordinates with children that preschools and kindergartens no longer focus on specific days like Father's Day or Mother's Day. Instead, teachers encourage kids to draw pictures of someone they love, using neutral terms like your family member rather than mom or dad. This approach takes into consideration not just single-parent families, but also children who may not live with their parents, instead being raised by grandparents, relatives, or foster parents. It ensures the classroom environment is inclusive and considerate of all family situations. When I was a child, my mother would leave me in the care of unrelated neighbors while she worked. This wasn't unusual. It was simply part of everyday life, where people supported and relied on each other. There was a sense that children were raised by the entire community. People were generally tolerant and laid back about kids playing in parks or vacant lots. However, this came with a rougher side. A well-known strict neighbor might scold you, or a teacher might suddenly deliver a knuckle rap without warning. Among the children, there were no filters either. I recall being teased as the kid without a dad and encountering various unconscious forms of labeling that were casually accepted at the time. It was an era of both the good old days and the bad old ways, a time with its share of charm, but also its share of outdated and hurtful practices. I think I was subtly hurt by being categorized as a child from a single-mother household. Saying that everyone is equal is far easier than achieving it. But I believe we must continue to promote inclusivity and break down emotional barriers. That said, I was raised in an environment far less sensitive than today's world, and I carried many ingrained stereotypes shaped by outdated practices from that era. Adapting my values to align with the modern age of diversity hasn't been easy, but by carefully listening to the perspectives of younger employees, I've gradually been able to accept and embrace new ideas. This led me to make a pivotal decision: to shift from a management style where I led from the top to one that empowers others to take the lead. I decided to appoint someone who could truly understand and represent the needs of single-parent families, a female employee named Taylor. Taylor, for 7 years, has been an excellent employee who, like my mother, lost her husband and raised her 2 sons alone. Now that her youngest is in high school, she has more time and energy to dedicate to her career. At this perfect timing, I decided to entrust her with a key role, rather than simply expanding this initiative as part of our existing company operations. I proposed a new approach, having Taylor launch an internal startup. If this model succeeds, it could serve as an inspiration for many single mothers and be a significant benefit to our company as well. Since Taylor remains employed by the company, her risks are minimized. After careful consideration, I've decided to take on the challenge of launching an internal startup. I've brought a business plan with me. I'm deeply honored by this opportunity and will do my utmost to succeed. Thank you for believing in me, Taylor said. I asked Taylor to give me her answer within 3 weeks, and she came back with her decision in just 1 week. Quick decisions are the mark of an excellent business person, and the fact that you also prepared a business plan. That's promising for the future, I said, impressed. Although I had only given her a rough outline of the vision for a business to support single-parent families, Taylor had transformed the idea into a fully viable business plan. Her proposal was to launch a service that dispatches certified professionals, such as child care workers, nurses, and caregivers, to families in need, particularly addressing the shortage of support for children with illnesses. The plan was thorough, addressing potential challenges and offering exciting possibilities. It was clear to me that my judgment of Taylor's potential was spot on. To get started, we needed financing, so we visited the bank. Our company's main bank is one of the large mega banks, and as the CEO, I've built relationships with their headquarters and various branches. For this project, I decided to work with a branch where a banker I knew served as the loan department manager. I had met Brian at a lecture on supporting single-mother households, and we hit it off immediately. To start things off, I arranged for Taylor to meet Brian for an introduction. Brian, who actively attends various lectures and workshops to enhance his work, was deeply interested in the socially impactful nature of the project. He listened intently as Taylor explained her plans, fully engaged with every detail. We'll need to submit the required documents and get approval from the higher-ups, but with Mr. Collins backing this, I believe the loan will be approved, Brian said confidently. With his assurance, I felt relieved and left the rest to Taylor. 2 weeks later, Taylor went to the bank to follow up on the loan, but she returned to the office shortly afterward looking dejected. Judging by the time she was gone, she had only been at the bank for about 5 minutes. What happened, Taylor? Weren't we supposed to hear the results of the loan today? I asked, puzzled. Typically, after a loan is approved, there are numerous procedures to finalize the agreement. Even with paperless systems, large loans like this require signing several documents, which takes time. But Taylor had returned almost immediately, her expression dark. Surely you got a positive response from the bank, right? Noticing Taylor's unusual demeanor, I asked her the question, fully expecting an affirmative answer. But Taylor silently shook her head. What? How is that possible? Brian assured us the loan would be approved with almost 100% certainty. I said, stunned by the unexpected outcome. "I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Collins," Taylor said, bowing deeply. There was a sudden personnel change, and the loan manager was replaced. All the documents we submitted were rejected. "Wait, what?" Taylor bowed deeply, almost abruptly, and I asked her to raise her head. "Can you explain what happened in detail?" I requested. "Yes," she replied, looking uncomfortable as she began to explain the situation. Today was supposed to be the day Brian, the former loan department manager, would deliver the loan results as promised. However, when Taylor didn't hear from him, she decided to visit the bank in person. The person who greeted her was a banker she didn't recognize. He introduced himself as the new assigned loan department manager and handed her a business card that read Jason. Taylor showed me the card, and it did indeed display the familiar branch name and the title of loan department manager. Jason said, "When I looked at the handover documents, I assumed the name was male. But I see now you're a woman." Visibly disappointed, Taylor explained. It seemed Jason had misunderstood from the loan documents that Taylor was male, given that the name Taylor can be used for both men and women. It wasn't an unreasonable mistake. But then he said, "Oh, so that's why this proposal is so overly optimistic. It makes sense now. We'll be canceling the loan discussions," and immediately sent me away, she added. What? As Taylor's shoulders drooped, my anger rose, and I could feel myself mentally readying for a fight. Even after carefully reviewing Taylor's business plan, I couldn't find any significant flaws. "They told me that a bottom-tier company has no place here," Taylor said, her voice heavy with frustration. Hearing those words, I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. It was clear that Jason, mistaking Taylor for an unknown female entrepreneur starting from scratch, had dismissed her as unworthy of consideration. He likely assumed the business proposal was amateurish and didn't bother to properly review the plan or recognize that Taylor had the backing of a profitable and well-capitalized company. That Jason clearly is incompetent at his job. But a personnel change at this time of year, did the previous manager, Brian, cause some kind of trouble? Taylor shook her head emphatically. "I was told that he was transferred to another branch, but knowing Brian's professionalism, I found it strange that he would leave without notifying his major clients. I can't imagine Brian being transferred without at least saying goodbye to his key customers," I said. Taylor nodded deeply before continuing. As I was leaving the small meeting room next to the service counter, I overheard Jason speaking proudly to the branch manager, Logan. He said my arrival in the promotion race was in the way, so I asked my father to have him demoted. It seemed Jason, the newly appointed loan manager, was the son of a senior executive at the bank's headquarters. To maintain appearances, Taylor was told that Brian had been transferred to another branch, but in reality, it might have been a demotion disguised as a reassignment. I also overheard Jason saying, "As long as you do what I say, I'll make sure you're not treated poorly, Logan," implying that he'd report any disobedience to his father. I couldn't hear much more because the female teller near me seemed suspicious of my eavesdropping, so I left the bank. Taylor explained, and so within just 5 minutes, Taylor had returned to the office, disheartened. It was evident that Jason was taking a high-handed attitude, not only with Taylor, but also with Logan. I began to worry about Brian's current situation. With that, I decided to make a call. "Hello, it's been a while. I'd like to discuss something with you," I said. That one phone call would mark the start of my counterattack. The next day, Taylor returned to the bank only to be greeted by Jason, who was smirking smugly. I stood at a distance, observing the situation unfold while keeping myself inconspicuous. "Oh, Taylor, isn't it? I thought I made it clear yesterday that we won't be proceeding with the loan. What brings you here now?" He taunted, his tone dripping with mockery. "You remembered my name well," Taylor shot back. "Given it was just yesterday, I suppose it's not too surprising, though I wouldn't have expected someone who can't even interpret a business plan to have a good memory." Taylor wasn't about to back down, responding to Jason with sharp wit. Just then, an authoritative voice interrupted Jason. That's enough. The bank grew abuzz as a man in his late 50s appeared. What? Mr. Anderson, why are you here? Jason stammered, panic evident on his face. And who could blame him? The president of this mega bank, Mr. Anderson, had just walked into the modest branch flanked by two sharply dressed subordinates. The female teller at the counter rushed to fetch Logan, the branch manager, who quickly emerged from the side door, visibly nervous. Please, this way, Logan stammered, leading Mr. Anderson and his team to the meeting room. Mr. Collins, I'm here in response to your call yesterday. May I have a moment of your time? Mr. Anderson said this as he bowed slightly toward me, standing directly across from Logan. At that moment, everyone in the bank turned their attention to me. Jason, who had never met me before, looked visibly startled, seeing the president of the bank, a man of such high rank, treating an older man like me with such respect. Clearly caught off guard, I could almost see the thoughts running through Jason's mind. Who is this guy? As soon as I became the center of attention, Logan seemed to notice me for the first time. His eyes widened in surprise, and he gave a small hurried bow. Of course, Logan and I had met several times before, but it was clear he had no idea I had a direct connection to Mr. Anderson. Our relationship had always been minimal. My dealings with this branch started because of Brian, whose character I admired after meeting him at a lecture. My interactions with Logan had always been indirect, mediated by Brian. It wasn't entirely Logan's fault for not knowing about my connection to Mr. Anderson. I had never flaunted it, and perhaps the bank's headquarters hadn't deemed this branch important enough to keep Logan in the loop on sensitive matters. I never imagined Mr. Anderson himself would come to discuss this matter. Yes, still visibly shaken, Logan said. As the president of a mega bank, Mr. Anderson's schedule was undoubtedly packed. I could only imagine how many appointments he had to cancel to make this visit happen. Acknowledging his sincerity, I had already decided to withdraw my harsh declaration from the day before. However, for the sake of teaching Jason a lesson, I made sure to keep my expression stern. The scene had drawn attention from the bank's other customers, so we moved to a private meeting room. Taylor, you don't need to worry about a thing. Just hold your head high, I whispered to her as we entered the room. Once everyone was inside, Mr. Anderson gestured for Taylor and me to take seats on the leather sofa, while he sat across from us. Logan, standing awkwardly nearby, seemed unsure of what to do until Mr. Anderson addressed him. Logan, sit next to me, the president instructed. Obediently, Logan took his seat. Jason, however, seemed to assume he should also sit next to Logan. But as he tried to settle in, Mr. Anderson shot him a sharp glare. Jason, you stand, Mr. Anderson commanded firmly. Yes, sir, Jason stammered, startled. He moved to stand by the wall near Mr. Anderson's subordinates, looking small and out of place. I must apologize sincerely. One of our employees has acted inappropriately, Mr. Anderson said, standing and bowing deeply. Please, raise your head. It pains me to see you bowing like this, I said sincerely, watching Mr. Anderson. Someone older than me and a person I've long respected, bowing so deeply in apology. It was an uncomfortable sight. I must admit, in my anger yesterday, I rashly declared, close all 51 group company accounts, totaling $3.65 billion. Over the phone, I confessed, feeling a twinge of regret. $3.65 billion. Jason blurted, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. Jason, be quiet, Mr. Anderson said, his tone stern. Mr. Collins does not only hold accounts at this branch. His group of companies treats our bank as their main financial institution, Mr. Anderson added. Jason's mouth remained agape, unable to process the information. I always make it a point to introduce myself and exchange business cards when meeting someone for the first time. However, with Jason, whom I met today for the first time. I couldn't bring myself to offer a proper greeting. As a result, Jason was understandably bewildered by the situation, unable to figure out who I was, while the conversation between Mr. Anderson and me continued seamlessly. When you went out of your way to offer a sincere apology and arrange this meeting to discuss things directly, I realized I had acted immaturely yesterday. I said, feeling a twinge of guilt as I scratched my head awkwardly. After hearing about the situation, I felt it was imperative to meet with you directly to apologize. I'm sorry for the short notice, but I greatly appreciate you making time for this meeting. The sincerity of Mr. Anderson's apology was evident, and I began to feel a pang of guilt for my outburst the day before. Jason apologized to Mr. Collins and Taylor. Mr. Anderson, he said firmly, turning to address him directly. With all due respect, sir, I understand that Mr. Collins is an important client for our bank. However, I still believe my decision not to approve the loan for Taylor was the correct one. Even in this situation, Jason refused to admit his faults. Jason, you did review the business plan I submitted before making your decision, didn't you? Taylor asked directly. Jason, unable to offer a rebuttal, hung his head. From my perspective, it was clear he hadn't properly evaluated the business plan either. Surely, didn't you dismiss the plan just because Taylor is a woman, without thoroughly examining its content or the business's potential? I pressed further, cornering him. Well, Jason stammered, clearly at a loss for words. Yesterday, Jason blatantly said, "Your outlook is overly optimistic because you're a woman, but I strongly disagree. I'm confident that the business model is viable and will turn a profit once it's on track." Her decisive statement was inspiring. It's an undeniable fact that Taylor is new to management. While it's natural for a bank to feel some uncertainty about funding a new entrepreneur, for a major bank with significant revenue and assets, the loan amount in question should not be cause for hesitation. This innovative project leverages the strengths of an internal startup, fostering collaboration with group companies, and the repayment simulation for the loan is both practical and feasible. For example, the service includes dispatching childcare workers for regular or sick childcare, and clients can participate as testers for baby food or baby products handled by our group companies. This feedback loop reduces service fees, benefiting both the clients and the company. This approach reflects Taylor's unique insight into the challenges faced by single mothers, and I found her ideas genuinely impressive. When I reviewed the business plan, I realized that Taylor had the qualities of a capable entrepreneur. The project not only contributes to society, but is also designed to be a viable business, and I decided to fully support it and provide ongoing backing as needed. Initially, I planned to fund the startup entirely through my company as a management initiative. However, Taylor pointed out that this approach would make the venture no different from establishing a new department within the company. She proposed starting with employee-driven funding, ensuring the new business would truly reflect the principles of an internal startup. That's why we sought a loan from this bank. But with the unexpected arrival of Jason as an adversary, our original goal of minimizing management's involvement crumbled completely. Ideally, I would have preferred not to step in at all. I wanted Taylor to feel the sense of accomplishment that comes with saying, "I negotiated this on my own, but it was disappointing that things didn't turn out that way. But honestly, every time I've worked with a woman, it's never gone well," Jason said, making an outrageous remark without a shred of remorse. His deep-seated prejudice was evident. Perhaps he had unresolved grievances from past interactions with women, but personal bias should never influence business decisions. If negotiations fail because of my own shortcomings, I can accept that, Taylor said resolutely. But dismissing a proposal outright simply because I'm a woman is unacceptable. I feel the same way. The person I respect most in my life is a woman, Mr. Anderson said, nodding, meeting my gaze. Of course, I deeply respect my father and many male mentors, but that woman is none other than Mr. Collins' mother. She was my teacher in elementary school, my mentor. Jason exclaimed, his voice clouded with shock. That's an incredible connection, Taylor said, her eyes wide in surprise. We've known each other for a long time, Mr. Anderson explained. I then began explaining my relationship with Mr. Anderson. In fact, I've known him long before he became the president of the bank. As Mr. Anderson had mentioned, he was one of my mother's students during her time as an elementary school teacher. He had grown up in a wealthy household, but it was a turbulent one, with strained marital relations between his parents. As a result, his childhood was often lonely and emotionally unstable. Mr. Anderson once told me that my mother had been the one to save him during those difficult years. While I don't know the details of what transpired between them, it was clear their bond went far beyond the typical teacher-student relationship. From my perspective, their connection was profound. Mr. Anderson respected my mother as his lifelong mentor and maintained contact with her even after graduation. Although they didn't meet frequently, they exchanged letters and postcards, and he visited her during significant milestones such as his middle school graduation and coming-of-age ceremony. To me, Mr. Anderson was like an older brother figure, someone I admired but wasn't particularly close to. My mother, however, was proud of her former student who had become a successful banker. When I decided to leave my corporate job and start my own company, Mr. Anderson was the first person who came to mind for advice. My first business venture was blessed with favorable circumstances, including timing, luck, and talented partners, which allowed it to achieve stability faster than I had anticipated. Mr. Anderson's guidance played a significant role in that success. Over time, I came to manage multiple group companies, and Mr. Anderson was always there to lend his support. Our relationship wasn't just built on friendship, but also on mutual respect as business professionals. My mother watched over the two of us with a warm smile, as if she were the proud mother of two sons. She passed away shortly after witnessing Mr. Anderson's promotion to bank president. Just as my mother was a lifelong mentor to Mr. Anderson, I'm certain he held a special place in her heart as one of her most cherished students. Students, regardless of gender or financial status, a remarkable individual will always stand out, just as someone who was unworthy of respect will remain so no matter their wealth or position. Mr. Anderson said, casting a pointed glance at Jason before turning back to Taylor and me. The responsibility also lies with me for allowing such behavior from an employee. I will ensure that this arrogant and incompetent loan manager, who relies solely on being the son of an executive, is demoted. Demoted? No way. Jason shrieked, interrupting Mr. Anderson mid-sentence. It seems that Brian, the previous loan manager, was unfairly demoted at Jason's behest because he was seen as an obstacle. Please look into this matter as well, I requested firmly. If someone as diligent and sincere as Brian had been treated unjustly, it was something I couldn't tolerate. I asked Mr. Anderson to investigate the situation. Of course, I will launch an investigation immediately and take appropriate action. It's deeply regrettable that such arrogant behavior was allowed to persist under my watch. Mr. Anderson responded, his tone filled with genuine remorse. Mr. Anderson looked visibly apologetic. As bank president, it's only natural that you focus on the bigger picture, maintaining a broad perspective and foresight. It's understandable that you wouldn't get involved in minor incidents. I should be the one apologizing for making such a fuss yesterday, I said, acknowledging my own misstep. The root cause of this entire situation was my reckless outburst over the phone, which had forced the bank's president to attend this meeting in person. For that, I felt deeply remorseful. Well, it's been a while since I've seen this fiery side of you, David. Honestly, if it weren't for moments like these, I wouldn't have had the chance to cancel unnecessary meetings and pointless gatherings. I'm actually grateful for it. Let's set work aside for today and grab some drinks together. At that moment, he was less the president of a mega bank and more the kind-hearted older brother figure. I remembered what a wonderful relationship Taylor had with him, her expression filled with warmth that reminded me of my mother, brimming with maternal affection. "I wish you all the best in this new adventure, Taylor and Logan. I'm counting on you," Mr. Anderson said before leaving with his team, flashing a bright smile as he exited the room. "Wait, please listen to me," Jason cried, wedging himself through the closing door in a desperate attempt to chase after Mr. Anderson. The rest of us silently watched him go, leaving the room in an almost eerie calm, like the stillness after a storm. After a long pause, Logan, who had been quietly observing the situation, stepped forward to take charge of the room once again. "I believe the loan manager position will be vacant for a while, so I'll handle this matter myself," Logan said, taking on the responsibility of directly managing Taylor's loan discussions. A few weeks later, Brian, who had been unfairly demoted by Jason, was reinstated at the branch. When Brian expressed his gratitude to me, I told him, "There's no need to thank me. This was simply the recognition of your capabilities, not something I made happen." I said I knew Brian would continue to make fair and thoughtful decisions as loan manager, balancing the bank's profitability with a genuine concern for the people seeking loans. 2 months later, Taylor officially launched her company as its CEO, successfully securing the necessary funding. Initially, her work focused on spreading awareness, recruiting users and childcare workers, and conducting applicant screenings. Full-scale services, such as dispatching childcare workers, were still on the horizon. However, the response from single-parent families exceeded expectations, with applications for the service growing faster than anticipated. Even my ex-wife expressed interest in the service, registering for future use. This service aims to support not only single-parent households, dual-income families, and those managing both caregiving and childcare simultaneously, but also to provide a reprieve for solo parents needing a break. Taylor is fully committed to making it a service that brings joy to a broad range of users. As a stay-at-home mom who suddenly became a widow and felt completely lost, "You gave me a place to belong, Mr. Collins, and now you've given me such an incredible opportunity. I'm truly grateful," Taylor said sincerely. One day, Taylor expressed her gratitude to me once again. "No, Taylor. You only had to step back because of health issues after giving birth. Before that, you were thriving at a major corporation. Having someone as talented as you join us was a stroke of luck for our company," I replied honestly. I had always wanted to support single-parent families through meaningful initiatives, but seeing it come to fruition in such an outstanding way was largely thanks to Taylor's efforts. I genuinely felt that trusting Taylor with the first internal startup project had been the right decision. Mr. Collins, your ex-wife also registered as a user, right? You seem to still get along well with her. Don't you feel jealous of her new husband?" Taylor asked, catching me completely off guard. "No, not at all. I have no lingering feelings, so I don't feel any jealousy toward her husband. On the contrary, I'm glad she became a mother after we parted ways," I replied. "To me, my ex-wife's child feels like a relative. While I'm not directly involved in raising them, I see them as someone I want to quietly cheer on and watch grow from afar." "You're so kind," Taylor said softly. Then, after a slight pause, she added with a flushed face, "I find myself feeling jealous of your ex-wife." "What?" I exclaimed, completely stunned. Taylor looked down, her face flushed to her ears. Was this a confession of love? I took a deep breath to calm my racing thoughts. Perhaps there was a future where Taylor and I could walk together as partners, both professionally and personally. For the first time in years, my heart felt light and hopeful. I didn't know where our relationship would go, but for the first time, I was looking forward to a tomorrow that might not revolve solely around work.